When it comes to children's characters, there's no room for anything intended to scare kids. However, far too often have there been characters who were unintentionally horrifying for some kids, and maybe even some adults. Odds are most of you fear to some extent one specific character in any kid-friendly show, movie, or a character in any form of entertainment when you were younger. Here are 10 of what I think are the most unintentionally creepy children's characters. Number 10. Fofão, a mop-topped escapee from the island of Dr. Moreau, has been a beloved entertainer of Brazilian children since the 1980s. He looks like a horrifying hybrid of a boar, a human, and, oh yeah, a pedophile. He has the singing voice of a cartel assassin, but the kids with him usually seem completely unfazed by his presence. Fofão is actually supposed to be a magical alien from the planet Fofalandia, who came down to Earth to form a band called Balloon Magic with a quartet of grade school children. If you see this thing in a dark alleyway waving you over to join his band, do yourself a favor and run. Number 9. Telechat. According to a French Wikipedia entry loosely translated by Google, Telechat is a bizarre satirical news program starring anthropomorphic animal puppets discussing topics that aren't quite relatable to children. What makes this worse than it already is first of all ostrich cleavage. Second, the thing that you thought was just an ordinary phone on the desk, if you picked up on it, was actually a living sentient being with the face of a human and the body of a telephone.
C'est pas pour vous, c'est pour Groucha.
Qui c'est, Duralo?
L'Angora.
Passez-le-moi.
Salut la vieille! Je débarque de Rio, je suis en pleine forme. Et toi, t'as perdu un peu de ta graisse? On va pouvoir s'y remettre.
The fact that everything spoken in this horrifying abomination is French doesn't help, considering most of us can't understand it, and these two nightmare-inducing freaks of nature could be talking about spying on children as they sleep for all we know. But the most terrifying thing is yet to come in this one. If you thought that horror phone was Telechat's only representative in the sentient appliance department, here's a corpse-faced microphone with a giant cloned science ear attached to it that you would normally expect on the back of a lab mouse. Number 8. Nobody. Most of us are familiar with the characters of Sesame Street. All of the gentle monster characters were carefully conceived to be as non-threatening as possible to amuse young children with entertaining lessons about spelling and friendship, which makes the inclusion of Nobody all the more baffling. The Nobody is a bodiless being animated completely by rubber bands. Nobody seems like he was specifically engineered as nightmare fuel, and for some reason, the producers of Sesame Street thought it would be appropriate to have Nobody use his twitchy, disembodied facial features to deliver counting exercises to preschoolers.
Now then, a count of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10. Once again, let's count to 10.
Jim Henson originally created this character for an entirely different purpose, to narrate a surreal short film about the human subconscious. And here's what that film looks like.
You know, I've learned to walk around inside my own head. Now, that may sound silly to you, but it's been very, very helpful to me. Let me show you how it's done. Oh boy. Gee, oh, spiders, man, I hate spiders. That one really gets me. Oh, brother. I wish we could get rid of that one.
Just remember, this is the nightmare that Jim Henson revisited and said, this should be the monster that teaches preschoolers how to count to 10. Number 7. Ubi. Ubi was a show on Nick Jr. about a family of bug-eyed naked hand puppets that could only speak in sentence fragments. The characters don't have separate puppet arms or anything because gluing arms to arms would be too horrifying even for this show. Instead, the characters merely use their faces to grab everything. There are scenes where the characters are holding eating utensils such as forks or chopsticks, but one could only imagine how that would work if these things used their mouths for holding the utensils in the first place. And let's not even think about what hole that food is going down. And what would these things actually see if they were to just look down? A detached arm hopping around the floor? Needless to say, this show looks as if it were something a serial killer filmed in his basement. Number 6. The blue thing from Courage the Cowardly Dog. This character may have only been in one episode, in one scene, but that doesn't take away from the fact that this indescribable abomination has haunted kids' dreams for years. At one moment, Courage is laying in the bed with the usual innocent animation, until this horrific Tim Burton-like figure flashes onto the screen, catching every single young viewer of the show off guard. Number 5. Him. Without a doubt, one of the, if not the, most horrifying villain in any Cartoon Network cartoon, but not that I would really know these days. Him was frequently implied to be the devil himself. Just about everything about this character is horrifying. His voice, his transgender appearance, the fact that he only grows stronger from fear, and his ability to speak through inanimate objects and children's toys. Him is truly a character worthy of a role in a horror movie.
Oh, Mr. Quackers, am I the only one who hates those miserable little brats? You hate them too? Oh, I knew I could count on you.
Number 4. Just about every character in Wizardora, but specifically Phoebe the telephone. Yep, yet another horrific living telephone on this list. But this one has arms, meaning if you get close enough, it might just wrap them around your throat.
Listen, it's Max. He's sending his fax tone. I'll send one back so I can receive his reply.
There. Good news, Phoebe?
Oh, yes. Dear Phoebe, thanks for your invitation. And yes, I would like to go out for a meal with you.
I honestly can't wrap my head around why people think inanimate objects with horrifying faces slapped onto them are appealing to kids, and if they are, what the hell is wrong with kids? Number 3. The Greedy. In Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure, Raggedy Ann and Andy are two dolls who embark on a mission to save one of their fellow toys from a villainous pirate named the Captain, who is also a toy. They hitch a ride on a camel who ends up leading them directly into the taffy pit, at which point they meet the Greedy. At first, Raggedy Ann and Andy think they've merely landed in a giant subterranean river of taffy, and they immediately begin eating the Greedy's body without any hesitation whatsoever. As they take bites of his flesh, the Greedy's horrifying face rises out of the sticky ocean and engages the two dolls in polite conversation.
The taffy pit is my domain. And I've gathered sweets of every description and flavor from all over the world.
Things don't get really dark until Raggedy Ann lets it slip that she has a heart made of candy, and that's when Greedy loses his mind.
Oh, the candy heart. It must be real sweet, real sweetheart.
Well, it's a candy heart, so I guess it's sweet enough.
Well, I'd like to have it.
He suddenly pulls out a pair of scissors and lunges for Raggedy Ann with the intention of cutting her heart out and eating it in a G-rated musical adventure for children. The two dolls make their escape and live happily ever after, unlike every innocent 4-year-old who watched this in a theater. Number 2. Whizbit. Whizbit is a magical talking wizard's hat from space with a shrill, buzzing voice and eyes that stare off in conflicting directions. It's unclear whether Whizbit is supposed to be a boy hat or a girl hat. Wizbit lives in a house with the desaturated color palette of an old-time TV commercial alongside a gloomy rabbit man named Wooly, who spends the majority of every episode muttering inaudibly,
You told me not to speak until you say.
Who did?
You did.
I did? When?
And you came back in.
This is the villain of the show, and yes, he's the least threatening looking or menacing character. I just can't tell what's more horrifying, the giant evil looking talking hat from space, or the 7-foot-tall killer bunny.
Hey, couldn't you get a copy of today's Daily Riddle?
Shut up, sap.
Huh? What did I say?
Listen, punk. Don't speak unless you're spoken to. Get it?
Got it.
Number 1. Animatronic bands. Just about anyone can relate to this, as there are still animatronic bands today. You've probably witnessed a band composed entirely of robotic animals up on a stage at some point. We're not talking the super realistic high-budget animatronics at Disney World. We're talking the lower-budget, crappy animatronics at pizza joints. For example, Rock-afire Explosion, Showbiz Pizza, or Five Nights at Freddy's. So what is it about these things that are so horrifying to so many people? Maybe it's the fact that they're actually there. They're real, not some cartoon on a screen. And they're freaky, giant robots designed to move like people. And maybe also because most people have imagined them coming off the stage to eat them ever since they were kids. If you can't relate to the fear of these secretly evil machines, then kudos to you. Because I'll admit right now, I used to leave the room when those curtains opened up.